Welcome to the Ivy Life Quad. This is a meeting that is held every Thursday at both 11 a.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Eastern Time from Ivy Life. And we have virtual networking at those times. And we also occasionally have guests who speak on topics that we think would be of interest to the community. So I'm Chris Colvin. I'm the founder of Ivy Life. And I'm delighted today to have a lifetime Ivy Life member, Michelina DeCibio. And Mick is a real expert in today's topic, which is how to use LinkedIn to build strong professional relationships. And just as a brief intro, I've been using LinkedIn for, I believe, more than 10 years now. And I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with it. I think it can be a great tool to build relationships, but I also think you can waste a lot of time on the platform if you don't use it efficiently. And I think you also, if you don't follow basic etiquette guidelines, you can end up annoying or alienating people rather than actually building strong relationships. So those are sort of my two takeaways from 10 or so years using the platform, but Mick is far more of an expert. So I'd like to introduce Mick and have her introduce herself a little bit, and then we'll move forward with today's topic.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Chris. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's so great to see your... Hi, Jeff. Thank you for the wave. Hello, everybody. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Could you just wave and let me know that you're engaged and you're listening and you're excited to learn about LinkedIn this morning? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, as Chris said, I have been with really, I guess, the Vino part of Ivy Life for quite a while now. I'm one of your founding members. I go by Mick, so please don't worry about pronouncing Michelina. You can call me Mick. My friends call me Mick for short. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I have 2 college kids. I have a senior who is graduating in just a few short weeks from home, and my son is a freshman. And so I'm also a certified holistic health coach. I run my personal, it's a wellness franchise that I run from my home. I'm also an author. Last year, I co-authored a book called The Art of Unlearning, which contains personal stories of courage. My story is in the book. And we're really excited or proud to say that the profits of the book are being donated to Kiva. So is anyone familiar with Kiva? If you haven't heard of Kiva, yes, thank you, Hannah. So Kiva is an organization, a nonprofit that provides microloans to women and others around the world, aspiring entrepreneurs that are in underserved populations. And so the goal with the book was to help other people reach their dreams too. So that was a really fun project to be a part of. So just by show of hands, so I kind of will help me figure out how much time to spend on each section. How many of you are just totally new to LinkedIn? You haven't ever even put a post up? All right, so you've all posted, so you have some experience with posting. Okay, all right. Karen is raising her hand. Karen, do you have a question? Okay. Chris, can you unmute her?
I didn't understand your question. I'm sorry. Well, I
haven't posted.
You have not posted. Okay. All right. My question was who on the call has anyone who has never even put a post up on LinkedIn?
A few.
So many of you have, okay, some of you don't. All right, so let me go right into, we're gonna go right into screen share mode here. Now, Chris, can you just give me a thumbs up? Can you see the screen?
Yes, I see it.
Yes, okay, excellent. So we're gonna talk about how, and by the way, friends, I am not hired by LinkedIn. I have no personal, affiliation with LinkedIn. What I'm sharing with you today is my personal experience and how I use it. And I'm going to try and keep it really simple so that you can sort of go away from this call with just a couple of key points and strategies that you can put to work right away when we complete the session. So basics, right? Let's start with the basics. You want to make sure you have a great professional headshot. Look at your headline. We could spend a whole session on just the basics, but hopefully your profile is looking nice and professional. You've got your headline, the story part, the about section, really important. You want to make sure that what you have in there is speaking to your target market, right? Because after all, you're using LinkedIn because you're trying to make connections. You want to get to the people that you can serve, right? And you're going to hear me talk a little bit later about servant leadership. My approach with my work, I'm in the wellness field. I am very much about, when I talk to people, it's coming from my heart. It's because I'm genuinely interested. I want to know how I can serve you, right? So make sure that whatever you have in that about section is targeted to the people that you are, you're looking to attract. So just put some thought into that, put yourself in that other position and think about what that person would want to hear or what they want to, connect with in your about section. And then obviously your experience, your education, et cetera, endorsements, recommendations. These are all things that are going to help just to build a little credibility online and give people an idea for, your background and sort of where you're coming from on things. So in terms of, so this is the meat of the whole thing, is making these connections. So let's see, I may have skipped a slide here. So first of all, we want to think about, again, that ideal connection. So I don't know if anyone has ever done this exercise about creating an avatar. So this would be, again, creating that ideal connection that you want to make. And so if you haven't already spent some time doing this, literally just put pen to paper and describe the ideal person that you want to connect with. So in your mind, you literally have a visual of that person. Chris is nodding, so maybe you've done this before.
Yeah, a little
so
bit.
For me, you have done. Okay, so for me, for example, I have a picture in mind. It's a health professional. I know what this person is wearing. I mean, get really down to the detail because it's going to help you make sure that as you're putting the messaging out there, you know exactly who you're talking to. Again, it's the ideal person. It doesn't mean that every person you connect with is going to have exactly that description, but at least you have something to start with. So think about, where would this person hang out, right? Because you want to find those people. So where are they? Are they in groups? Perhaps you start searching for groups on LinkedIn where you think your audience is going to be. For me, it's health professionals. So I'm looking into a lot of the healthy living type groups, chiropractors, therapists, et cetera, right? And connecting and making, building relationships within those groups.
Hey,
The other
Nick,
thing,
real quick, we had a question in the chat room
yes.
back on the profile stuff. I don't think you need to go back, but it was about profiles. And someone asked, what's the difference between a profile for a business and a profile for an individual?
A profile for a business and a profile for an, okay. So the profiles that we all have on LinkedIn are really personal profiles. A business profile would be if you had one that was more like the header as the name of your company and perhaps more of what your company does. I've never created a business profile.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you can answer that one better than I.
I could probably answer that one because I've created several because I'm self-employed. So when you create a business profile, it's probably beyond the scope of this to talk about the details, but I think most Ivy League graduates could figure it out. So it's pretty easy to create a profile, and if you have a logo, you put the logo for your business on it. And then the most important thing, I think, part of it is you can use it as sort of a landing page, just almost like your own website for your company, although it's hosted on LinkedIn. But it's also important because you can link to it in your profile, in your personal profile. So instead of just putting the name of your business, you can link to it in your profile. And that's kind of nice because then the logo of that business appears in your personal profile. So that's a brief answer to that question. They are completely separate, but they link to each other. And then on the company profile, the employees who have listed it in their personal profile will also appear as employees of that company. So that's a brief explanation, but back to you, Mick.
Okay, and then I saw there was one other question I peeked while you were
Okay.
talking. And I think Brad asked the question about groups, how many, how large or small. What I would ask you to think about is what you can keep up with. Consistency is going to be important if you're going to be part of a group. So you want to show up consistently. So think about which groups really are the biggest, the best fit, and where you can really commit to showing up consistently. That's really the bottom line, is just you've got to show up, and because that's how you're going to start building relationships. People will quickly catch on, because I've seen this happen where people come into groups and then they go out. They don't feel like they're not building momentum or something, and then they just leave the group. The you're going to have the best level of success if you're just consistent. So, you know, a large number, I don't know, are you going to be able to keep up with all those? My hunch would be pick a few that you know you can visit regularly and stick with that plan and just be consistent. And then just between what is free. So the premium version allows you, and I think there are several versions. The one that I have allows me to connect with 15 new people per month that are not already in my, they're total strangers, right? So it allows me to message them and send them an invitation to connect. If you don't have that, you just have the free version, you know, you're very limited in terms of the people that you can actually go out and invite to be a part of your network. So the key with LinkedIn, of course, and building any relationship really, is you have to start conversations with people, right? That's what this is all about. So you want to get into the habit of liking, go through your feed in the morning or whatever time of day you choose to do it, like, comment on what people have to say, and ask questions. Asking questions is how you're going to start conversations. And of course, you want to ask questions that you really care about. You know, the whole idea here is be genuine about your interest in what someone else is saying. In terms of the timing of posting, I would recommend, you know, I try to do it at least 3 times a week, so that again, you're showing that level of consistency and people are beginning to realize that you're serious about what you're doing. You're serious about delivering value and connecting and making real connections. So the visibility and the consistency is really important. In your posts, super important, using photos or videos. Video, of course, nowadays is even more eye-catching than just a photo. Evoking emotion. So when I say this, what I mean is in your post, so typically what will happen is you'll post either a picture or a video, and then you're going to have some text to go along with that. What you want to do in the text is make sure that you are addressing or connecting. You're helping the person. Again, think about that ideal person who is going to connect emotionally with what you have said. You're going to trigger some kind of emotion in that person. So think about pain points, think about fears perhaps that you're going to address, think about benefits that your service or your products offer, think about how you're going to make this person's life easier. So really start thinking about the challenges that people are facing. And I don't have to tell you all, nowadays, we have a lot to think about, right? So really try to connect emotionally. And it doesn't have to be a sad emotion. It could be a happy emotion. You know, maybe your message is one of inspiration, right? And who doesn't want to feel great about something? So whatever it is, just try to think about that, making that connection. And again, this idea of asking questions. So if you get a comment from someone, perhaps you can respond by thanking them and then asking a follow-up question. Delivering value, I just touched on this a minute ago. Perhaps you're teaching something. So I'm going to give an example here, and I'm not picking on this in one industry. I'm just sort of using it as an example because it's something I see a lot. Say you are in the field of financial planning or any kind of advising, I guess of any kind. It really doesn't matter whether it's financial or otherwise. What I see a lot on LinkedIn is people posting links to articles, for example, that are already out there, which is fine. That's great because you're sharing the information. But what I would value, you know, as a consumer, even more than that, is if you offered me a tip or an insight or something that's going to make you stand out from the pack, right? So you always want to be thinking about how can you differentiate yourself from everyone else out there who's, you know, most of the people out there, you know, you don't know, right? They're strangers and you're trying to bring them into your circle. So you've got to think about what can you say or do? What's your angle? Perhaps part of that is your story. Perhaps part of it is an experience that you've had that you mention in the post. You're using a lesson maybe that you have learned to teach others, maybe to avoid a mistake that you made or what have you. Does this make sense?
Yeah,
So far?
makes a lot of sense.
Okay, great. So the next thing I want to talk about are hashtags. So hashtags and tagging are two activities on LinkedIn that you may have seen people use. And I just want to explain briefly what they are. So a hashtag is, think of it as if you're putting your post in a file, in a folder. Okay, so you could have, so for example, when I'm posting something, often my posts will say hashtag healthy living or hashtag eat healthy or hashtag take control or whatever the folder that is. What this does is it allows people who are interested in those topics, if they click on that hashtag, it's going to pull up a stream of posts that are also placed in the same folder. So you might say, well, why would I put my thing in somebody else's folder? Well, because what could happen is, let's say there's someone who is going into that folder, but not through my post, right? They've clicked on it on somebody else's post because they're interested in healthy living. What that will do is it will also show them my post and what I'm doing. And so if they're curious to learn more about what I'm doing, they're then going to click on my profile and they may or may not send me an invitation to connect. But I can tell you from experience, I've gotten invitations to connect. And this is one of the ways, because it's a way for you to, again, find your audience. You're going to be in a folder with people that have the same interest that you have. They're talking about the same topic that you're talking about. The tagging is a little different. So tagging now is actually, we say tagging a person. So what this will do is you'll start with the @ sign, and then you'll put the person's name. So @ Chris Colvin. And what'll happen is my post will show up in Chris's messages. He'll know that he was tagged, but it'll also appear in his feed. So anyone that goes to Chris's feed is also going to see my post. So we want to be careful, and I'll talk a little later about, I'll remind you to be careful about tagging, because you do want to be respectful, of course. I'm not saying that that would ever be an issue with any one of us, but you just want to be mindful, because there are people that are in my circle, my connections, who have gotten into this habit of tagging me every single day on every single post. And what happens is it fills up my inbox with stuff that's really not always relevant to me. So what's happening is it's beginning to annoy me. And what happens with that is then I start to get annoyed with the person. Now, if I'm getting annoyed with the person, am I going to want to do business with the person? Probably not so much.
Right.
I'd rather, so my point is just be really mindful. And I have had to go back and just say politely, could you kindly, I love what you're doing. I love your service, but I would really appreciate it if you could just untag me.
Yeah. And Mick, a couple questions on the chat window I want to get to just before we move on to the next topic, but also wanted to share sort of, I'm newer to hashtagging and tagging. In fact, Mick taught me some of this stuff, and a couple cautionary tales just from my own experience. I was using tagging, I think, which is the @ sign, incorrectly. I thought, at least in my current view, in my more educated view, because I was using it, I was sort of tagging people that I thought might be interested in what I was posting. And there's a large segment, and some people are fine with that, but there's actually maybe a large minority of people who think it means you might be they might endorse what you're posting. And so I tagged a whole bunch of people one of the first times I did it, thinking, oh, they'd be interested in this. And then most people said great and they liked it and stuff like that. And so at first I thought it was good. But then what I realized was I got one sort of nasty gram. I actually genuinely thought she'd be interested in it, but she said, I don't endorse this post and I disagree with you. And it was like, whoa. And I felt a little bad, but also it was an educational experience. So, be aware that there are people who will view that @ sign, which is the tagging, as you saying they endorse what they're doing. And then another thing I learned about hashtagging is, at least in my own mind, I've sort of divided into two useful categories. One is like these generic global hashtags that you want to be sort of part of a large conversation. The other is you can make your own niche hashtags that very
Yes.
few people are going to use. Like IvyLife, for example, I'm almost the exclusive person that uses that, although some people use it in a different way. But usually if you search the hashtag IvyLife, I'm getting more consistent about using it now. But so when you search that hashtag, you'll find mostly my stuff. But here's the questions that we're getting. There's a lot of them, but how do you identify the best hashtags? I'm just going to give you a
Yeah,
global.
I'm looking at them. I see
Yeah,
them, Chris.
there's a
I pulled
lot
them
of
up.
them. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I pulled them up. So let me answer. I'll just quickly go through.
Yeah.
So let's start with Jeff. So Jeff is asking about the inspirational quotes. Is he alone that he finds them annoying, or are they a good idea? That's a really good, I think it depends. You may not be the niche market for that person. So if that person is a life coach, or that person is, a counselor of some kind, it may be relevant. They're looking for people that are looking to feel inspired. Maybe there's somebody out there who's having a hard time finding a job, right? So perhaps that inspirational quote is speaking to them, but it's not speaking to you. So, so if you find that annoying, that's a great, I don't know whether in LinkedIn you can sort of block someone's posts. I believe there probably is a way for you to do that, because most of these platforms have that. So I suppose that would be something you could do, or just continue scrolling, just go past it.
Yeah.
In terms of the
One thing,
best, Mhm.
Mick, one thing you can do, which seems to limit it, is there two things you can do. If you happen to be connected with that person for some random reason and you don't want to be any longer, just disconnect from them. Most people aren't even going to notice, right? So it's not
Right.
rude if you're not interested in and if you happen to be following them for some random reason, unfollow them, because their posts will appear
Mhm.
more prominently if you're either connected or if you're following them, I think. I'm not 100% sure about that, but that's been my anecdotal experience.
Right. No, you're right. I've had that same experience. In terms of the best hashtags to reach your audience, think about, you can look at some of your competitors perhaps and see what hashtags they're using. And you could even use some of those so that your posts are going into the same folders, and so that their followers will be then seeing potentially your posts. But I do like the idea that Chris mentioned about creating your own that's unique to you. And so if you come up with a unique one, grab it and start posting and using it. So mine is let us be the good. Lettuce spelled like the food, but double meaning, right? Let us be the good. So I use that with every post, so that when someone goes in there, they're going to see the history of all the stuff that I've shared. So really think about, again, your audience and the words that you think they will be searching on. So if you want to talk about specifics, I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one, and I can just brainstorm with you on ideas. If you want to do that, I'm happy. I would love to do that with you. You don't need a Twitter account to use a hashtag on LinkedIn. You don't need one to do the tagging on LinkedIn. It's just the @ sign. All that does is it pulls in the profile of the person that you have tagged. And Charlie, oh, thank you, Charlie. It's volume 3. The book is volume 3. And did I answer hopefully I answered all the questions.
I think that's most of it. There's some comments. Well,
Robust post.
I think Charlie wanted a link to your book, so I think I just found it and I'm going to post it. Whoops, I posted it privately to one person. Sorry about
That's
that.
okay.
Here
And
we
then,
go.
thank you.
That should be Michelina's book, and she has other co-authors too.
Thank
So,
you. And
yeah.
then Rohini, your question about the feedback and the connections. I mean, the one I posted yesterday, for example, I got a call, the same day about the event and the company and the mission and so on. So, here's the other thing. You can't necessarily go by the activity that you see on LinkedIn. So if you're posting consistently and you're not seeing comments or likes or what have you, please don't be discouraged by this, because many people, especially on LinkedIn, may not want other people to see them, to see what they are doing. That doesn't mean you're not going to get a phone call or a private message. This happens with me all the time. And especially, I would say, maybe because I'm in the wellness field, people aren't always so comfortable They don't want other people to know what their concerns are, perhaps.
Right,
So
right, of course.
so don't be discouraged by that. Just be consistent, and keep showing up. I don't think there are any limits on the hashtag name, at least none that I've run into. Okay, so
I'm sorry.
Mhm.
The reason I mention this is because you had mentioned it's probably best not to post articles that are kind of common knowledge. But I was wondering, what is an example? Well, you said you posted something yesterday. I didn't see it, but I'm just wondering, like specifically in your profession, that you get a lot of feedback and connections and conversation.
Right. So the ones that really get a lot of attention, that I get a lot of feedback on, are certainly the events. I run events a live event at least once a week. And by the way, while I'm on that topic, I want to just give a shout out and a huge thank you to both Susan Gantz and Rajan for attending last night. I really appreciate that. They were so supportive. They took out about an hour of their time to be with me last night. And I really, really appreciate that. And thank you, Chris, because I wouldn't have met them had it not been for you and for IvyLife.
My
So,
pleasure.
but thank you. So, but that kind of a post, sharing an event, for example, is something that, especially now, people are looking for things to do online, to learn, etc. It is an easy way for any of you to offer a free seminar of some sort, whatever your service is. Offer a 30-minute Zoom, come learn, come meet online, right? So it's a great way to use LinkedIn to attract your audience. So I'm just going to get back to the slides, and I know we're sort of running, it's already 11:30. So I'm going to go through this, and then maybe at the end, if that's okay, we'll continue with the questions. Chris?
Yes, please.
You good with that? Okay. Let me just make sure I covered everything in our previous chart here. I think we did. Okay. We did not. Okay, so let's finish. Publishing articles. So articles are different from posts. Posts are going to show up in a feed. So if you're familiar with something like Facebook or Twitter or what have you, how things are kind of like in like this big long feed. They will eventually go deep into the feed and you'll lose it. And then, you keep looking at the top for the next new post. Articles, however, are permanent in your profile on LinkedIn. So you could potentially get a little more mileage out of an article. The difference is that it doesn't show up in the feed, okay? But that's all right. It's just another way for you to have something original that you're creating, that you are publishing as an article. And Chris has done a number of these, which are terrific. Oh, strategy. So this is the strategy that I use to help me get the most engagements on LinkedIn. I post, and then I go into comment mode. So why do I do it this way? Because first I put my post out there. Then I go to my people that I follow. I have some influencers that I follow. Last time I think I shared one of the people that I follow is Dr. Mark Hyman, because he is a functional medicine practitioner. And the people that he attracts are the people that I want to attract. So I go to his articles and I read through them, through the comments, excuse me. I will comment on Dr. Hyman's post. Most of the time I agree with him 100%. And then I will go through and look at what his followers are saying. And if I genuinely like what they're saying, or I'm interested in hearing more about the person, I will comment on what they have said, or I will ask them a question. Inevitably, what happens is they then send me an invitation to connect. Because now they want to know more about me, or perhaps they want the opportunity to answer the question that I have asked. And the bottom line is they're all out there to network too, right? So they want to connect with people like me as well. So posting and then commenting is a nice strategy, because typically after you comment, of course, the person, right, if I comment on any one of your things and you don't know me, you're going to go to my profile and say, who is this person that just commented on my post, right? So I've looked, there's a lot of information out there on what's the ideal time to post. People have different positions on this. Generally speaking, the LinkedIn crowd, because it's mostly a professional crowd, the advice out there is to post between 8 and 2 p.m. but really I say, you know your industry best and what sort of timeline or hours your audience keeps. So just play around, try different things and see what happens. Generally Tuesday to Thursday, because Mondays people are just getting back into the fold, and Fridays, are Fridays. Although nowadays any day is any day. So I don't know if it really matters so much anymore. It's this day and that day, right? And the
Yeah.
other day. So so just, play around with that and see what works best for you. You do want to keep an eye on your messages and invitations. So what this means is in the upper right-hand corner of either your computer, LinkedIn screen, or on your phone, you want to make sure, of course, you're keeping up with all of those. So if you're not familiar with where those little things are, again, I can show you on another call, but basically just make sure, because you want to be responsive. When you're sending an invitation to someone, if there's someone you want to connect with, don't just hit the button send or connect. You have an option to include a message. Please include a message, because when I get an invitation and the person, there's no message, I don't even accept it.
Right.
Because I know this person, I'm assuming this person is just going out and clicking all these people that they look like they want to connect with. It shows me they haven't taken the time to read about what I'm doing. They're not maybe really, haven't shown me a genuine interest in really making a connection. So putting in a little message like, hey, Chris, we don't know one another, but I see that you are also a fan of Mark Hyman. I love what you said about XYZ, about eating more plants. And I also noticed that you are a farmer. I would love to hear more about your techniques. Would you be open to sharing more with me about your story? Or I don't know, I just thought it was was what I just off the cuff. But do you see the difference between just firing off invitations and showing a real interest in what the person is about? So
Yes.
you want to be...
Meg, can I add a comment to that? Because I
Yeah.
have another little personal anecdote. So if you use the LinkedIn app, this is a big issue. I mean, not a big issue, but if you use the LinkedIn app to connect with someone, you cannot just hit that connect button. There's a blue button. I don't know if I'm on a tiny window, but so I won't try to show you my phone. But if you pull up someone's profile, there's a blue connect button, and it's tempting to just tap that with your finger. But if you do that, it will send just a bare request to connect with no message. You need to connect. There's a little more button, more with an ellipsis, more ... You need to click more, and you'll get personalized invite. So when you're connecting with people using the LinkedIn app, you can accidentally, commit that faux pas of doing the blank message, which I agree I usually don't respond to those. I usually ignore them. So
Right.
just a warning shot for people that might be using the app. That can be dangerous, because you end up, and I've done it a few times, and then I usually try to send them a message. I'm really sorry, I meant to send and then I finally learned you can't do that on the app. You need to click the more button.
Right. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And so the idea with the message is, you want to explain why you're reaching out, what inspired you to connect with this person. Perhaps you're asking a question to learn more about them. And people, let's face it, we like to talk about ourselves. We like to say what we do. We like to share, right? Don't we all like to do that? We can't wait to tell people what we do, right? So when someone asks you, Jeff, I'm really interested in knowing more about you. Tell me what... I really do. I want to know. And he told me last week, by the way. He's an awesome guy. So, but think about what you can give to the other person. So in my little example with Chris, I said, I see that you like to garden. I'd love to know more about that. I'm thinking to myself, oh, I may be able to help make Chris's life easier. He may love to know about this vertical tower garden. So I'm thinking I'm going to let Chris tell me all about his gardening. And then I might say something like, Chris, I have absolutely no idea if this is something that you're open to, but I can't resist sharing it with you in the event it could help you. And Chris will probably be interested in hearing more. Okay, let me go back here. We talked about monitoring all of that, taking the conversation offline. So I'll often say, I'd love to hear more. Would you be open to having a conversation? How is your schedule next week? Listen, offer help. Your mindset should, this is again, just my opinion, my suggestion. You always want to come from a position of this, what I call servant leadership. And this has been posted. It's not of my invention. This is a common thing. Think about how you can serve the other person. When you're on LinkedIn, don't think about get, I need to get. Think about what can I give to my audience? What can I give to my target audience? The answer might not be your service. The answer might be that you have a friend or a connection that can help that person, right? I love that. Just as much as talking about how I can help people with my company and our products and our programs, I love connecting people. And I do my best to really make thoughtful introductions and connections. And by the way, not to get off topic, but if you're going to do that, make sure you ask the parties for permission and do they want to meet one another? You know, it would be a nice thing to do that. Keeping in regular touch with people is super important. Develop whatever your CRM system is. I have a tool that I use that is makes a tremendous difference in my business, where it has all of my prospects, all of my follow-up dates, and so on, so that this is how you actually build and strengthen the relationship. So don't just make it a one and done, a hit and run kind of deal, right? You want to check in on this person. Maybe it's every, I don't know, depending on who they are and what your feeling is about the person and how much you can help each other. Maybe you're just popping in every 60 days or 90 days and you're just saying, hey, Charlie, was thinking of you today. Hope you're doing well. That's it. It doesn't have to be a long just conversation. Hey, I heard you're in, you were in the city. Did you make it to the Cape okay? Whatever, right? You're caring about the person. This is what it's all about. It's caring about other people and helping to make the connections. And I'm going to stop. Well, let me go one more. Okay, so we talked about some of these already, but just to reinforce, you always, of course, want to be positive. You want to be professional. This is something that can be annoying, so I would urge you not to do this. Do not just add connections to your email distribution list without permission. Have any of you been a victim of that? Where you get these emails and you're like, where the heck did this come from? I did not ask for this. I talked to this person one time and all of a sudden now I'm on their distribution list. Big,
especially now.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
I just wanted to add, especially now, because we're all getting, at least I'm getting like 20 COVID-19 emails a day from people I don't know very well or not at all. And I think a lot of them were LinkedIn connections. So it does happen, and it's annoying. Yeah,
it is. Again, we talked about the tagging. Just be careful about that. The one example where I think tagging is very well received is when you're thanking someone, right? Who doesn't like to be thanked? So I think you're pretty safe tagging someone with a thank you, and you're not going to be annoying anybody. Of course, make sure the messages are relevant, and you always want to be responsive to people. Think about the benefits, the pain points, et cetera, that you're solving in your messaging and in your posting. So I'm going to stop there, and let's take a look at some of the questions that came through.
There's a lot. There's a lot.
So Robert sent me one. So he asked, can you post a link to your article? Yes. And then the link will show up in others' posts. So just to clarify that a little bit, Robert, what you can do is post a link to your article. The link will show up in the others' feed. I think that's what you mean when you say in others' posts. It's showing up in the feed of that person. So yes, you can do that. Margaret is asking about the influencers. How do you find them? Well, I think Margaret, depending on the field that you're in, think about the people that the people in your field look up to as, doing just like their high spot in their field, right? So people that are highly regarded, without knowing your particular field, I can't like specifically direct you. But for example, again, I know mostly the medical field because that's where I am, people like Dr. Mark Hyman and others, Dr. David Katz at Yale, for example, would be another person I follow. Think about the people that are highly respected in your field and go to those, or start with the companies that are highly regarded in your field, and then you'll see the people and you'll be able to figure out who the influencers are.
Can I make a suggestion there, Mick?
Sure.
Nick?
Mhm.
One thing that I've learned to do fairly recently is combine the hashtag with the influencer search with the sort of posting and liking, because like for instance, in what I do in my day job involves helping corporate legal departments be more innovative in their operations. So I'm interested in connecting with innovative general counsel that are interested in that same topic. So if I use the hashtag general counsel, I'll find posts by general counsel, and then I can like, especially since the pandemic has started, I have a little extra time. So I'm finding time to sort of look up articles, say, hey, I really thought this was insightful, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can, and then a lot of those people, like you were saying, Mick, would then send me a request to connect a few minutes later. In fact, even I got a couple of Fortune 500 general counsel contacts that way, just by saying. And what's interesting is, you think, wow, these are really important people. They're super busy, but they're concerned enough about networking that they've posted something on LinkedIn. So it's like a self-selecting community, right? The fact that they posted means they want to get attention on this for whatever reason. So, and everyone likes to be appreciated no matter how exalted they are in their profession. So it's a great way to connect with people that are at a high level. I hope that's helpful.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chris. So Karen's question is, why is posting and generating emails to your followers during prime working hours not disruptive to them and annoying? I think what you're asking, Karen, when you say posting and generating emails, I think you mean just posting on LinkedIn during prime time. Okay, so those are different. Emails are separate, right? Emails are in your Yahoo or Gmail or something like that. But you're talking about posts in, it's only, I mean, they're not going to, posting doesn't generate alerts, right? So you're not going to see the post unless you go into the feed to see what's going on in a particular day. So you're not going to be bothering anybody. You could post, I suppose, after hours, but remember that your posts they go into this feed where as other things get posted, right? They get layered on top of what you've posted. So you think about your people, again, your target audience, and what time you think that they are generally on LinkedIn. So you want to sort of be, posting around those times. And again, for your particular industries, you're going to have to play around and see what works for you. But generally, in my experience, posting around, 10 a.m., and then again by mid-afternoon, by 1 or 2 o'clock, people have either taken a lunch break and they're looking, or, they get to the office in the morning, they get going, then they check. So it's just a matter of what your folks are doing. The 3 dots are in the upper right-hand corner of either your screen or your phone. Thank you, Jeff. You're so kind to say that. Let's see, Karen, most invitations and messages are generic, congrats, that do not explain our common interests. Valid. Okay, delete without
I think
reading.
you answered that one.
Yes, okay, all right, great. Let's see here, Marlena, how do you respond to a request to connect from someone you're pretty sure wants to okay. So that's a great question. So what I do, Marlena, is before I accept an invitation from someone that I don't know, and I actually did this with Chris this week.
Yep.
There was a young gal who reached out to me, and she's a connection of Chris's, and I had no idea who she was, and she just sent me a connection request, no comment. So I didn't delete her right away because she was a friend of Chris. So I thought, well, maybe Chris can validate who this is. And I sent him a quick text and said, hey, just curious, do you know so-and-so? He said no. Yeah. And so I'm not really, what I did was I messaged her and I said, thank you very much for reaching out, because I really appreciate that you thought of me. Please tell me what inspired you to connect with me. Please tell me what inspired you to connect with me.
I like that.
I have not gotten an answer from her. So you know what that tells me?
She's
she
not
wasn't
inspired.
really, she wasn't inspired. I did not inspire her.
That's a great strategy.
I did not inspire her. I personally did not inspire her. Maybe she was inspired by my education or something, but she was not inspired by me. That makes me a little sad, but not really, because
Yep.
she's not the kind of person that I want to be connected with, because guess what? She's not genuine, right? So done. So on to the next one.
Right.
So CRM tool called Fellow, which includes a tier. Okay, not familiar with that. Thank you for sharing that, Lee. Excellent. The CRM that I use, Dale, is something called Team Z. It is specific to the network marketing industry, which is my industry. It can also be used in the real estate area. Lots of realtors will use it. I mean, I don't think you have to be in the network marketing or real estate, for example, to use it. It's really relates to any business where you just have a lot of contacts and you want to really do a good job with keeping up and following and so on. I think it applies to many different things, and they actually offer 30 days free, so give it a try. It downloads your contacts and it's wonderful. I think it's well worth, I think it's $20 a month or something to have it. Stefan, as Mick says, if the request doesn't have personal anecdote, then you ignore it. Thank you for agreeing with me. I appreciate that. Victor, good technique. Excellent. Oh, Hannah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let's see, what am I missing here? Anybody?
Well, there's a recommendation, Less Annoying CRM. Is that actually the name, Brad? It's called Less Annoying CRM. I don't know. Brad said I used Less Annoying. Okay, he says yes, that's the name. So I
It's the
guess
name of it.
there's a
Oh, good.
CRM called Less Annoying, quote, Less Annoying CRM for
Okay,
$10 a month.
okay.
Then someone else
Nick,
posted.
Yeah, Rohini
Okay,
has a
yeah.
good question. Rohini's
Right.
question is, how is posting professionally in a professional Facebook group, that's the key word, is professional, different from posting on LinkedIn? Well, the only professional group network that I belong to is LinkedIn. I know Chris was toying around with something called Workplace, which is like a professional sort of version of Facebook. I don't think there's any difference in the way you're going to show up, because they're both professional audiences and platforms. But, you know, you're going to kind of get the sense of what the culture, so to speak, is like, right? So get an idea for the culture before you start posting. See what it's like. You'll get a vibe, and you'll decide, you know, what the right thing to do is. When someone, Michael thought, I just asked, was there something in particular you wanted to discuss? Yep. Yeah. Now, the only thing with that, Michael, I will say is that, you know, sometimes for me, it's not any one thing in particular. Sometimes for me, it's that I just want to get to know you. You may be a really good, you know, you may have a beautiful profile as a financial planner or what have you. I just want to get to know you. I want to get to know your philosophy, your style, do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's not like a particular thing. It's just, I want to get to know you, right? You're going to refer people and do business with people that you're comfortable with. So CRM is the Team Z one. That's a customer relationship management tool is what that, and Google Sheets is free. Yes, that's a great idea too. What I like about things like Team Z is that it just is the reminders and the follow-ups pop up automatically when you put a certain date in, but you could do the same with Google Sheets. You could have a column that says follow-up dates, and you could order it by the date, you know, and you can do that, and it's free. Brad uses this thing that's $10 a month. That's fantastic. Let's see. Ross, what about the argument there's little incremental cost to being connected with someone? There's little incremental cost to being connected with someone, assuming they don't harass. Yeah, I mean, if they harass you, you just disconnect. That's all.
Yep.
You know, you have to decide who you want to be connected with and who you don't. And you can always unfollow. Absolutely. Susan, thank you very much. I hope I've answered all the questions, but is there anything else? 11:54.
I
We're
think
1
it's
minute.
been great. Yeah, we're sort of running out of time. I think it was fantastic. One sort of wrap up comment I had was that use your writing skill, especially this community. If you're an Ivy League alumnus, you probably can write cogently and concisely. So that's really important in a medium like LinkedIn. Don't write these long posts that no one's ever going to read. It's a total waste of your time and a waste of their time. So use those writing skills and make it clear and concise. And then you'll find that people will respond well to those kind of posts. But I think this was excellent. Mick, I'll leave it to you to do the final wrap-up comments, and then we'll close out the recording.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Chris, for inviting me to do this. I absolutely love this group. I think you're all so kind with your comments. I just want to say you're the ones that are awesome because you all showed up. So thank you. We wouldn't have an event if we didn't have the people and the interest. So I do hope you found it valuable. And I genuinely would love to know more about what each of you does. And if there's a way I can help connect you with other people in my network that could be of service to you, or you could be of service to them, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can set up some time to get to know each other better. And other than that, I wish you all very good health and prosperity and whatever you do, and just stay connected. Stay connected. This is an opportunity with everything going on around us to really be mindful of the people that we choose to have in our lives. So I'm just going to say, I feel incredibly blessed to be a part of this community. And thank you again very much, Chris.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, folks. We do have this again at 2. We're going to cover a lot of the same material, but of course, you're welcome to come back at 2 p.m.
Thank you.
Eastern time if you'd like. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for all the great questions, and I'll see maybe
Thank
some of you
you.
at 2.
Bye, everybody.
Hopefully
Nice
see a lot
job.
of you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Paul.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
soon. Bye-bye.